Hey everybody, how's it going? Tactard Ted here. I learned a few things with the last video. I learned that my new mount is really good. I also learned that because it sticks out a little farther towards the windows, that I cannot use the windows open. I've got to have the windows closed, or you're going to get a lot of blowback, a lot of wind noise. So I'm trying a little different. I'll probably end up sweating because I don't like to run the air conditioner if I don't have to, because I want that on days I need to relax, and let's face it, I can't relax today. So what's up? Well, you know what's up. It's Ukraine. Now I could go on and talk about what's going on with China right now, but I would rather stick with the beginning mess that the Biden administration helped to escalate, that was started by the Obama administration. Yes, the war in Ukraine. Now, there's those of you out there who may think that this war started in February of this year. It did not. It was started by the Obama administration in 2014. And the Russians simply decided to get involved. So a Ukrainian civil war, where they were doing genocide against the civilian population, finally spilled over into a neighboring country that has ethnic ties with it. Yeah, the Russians, they came in. So what is going on today? Well, we are seeing a major event happening. Nobody's going to cover it. Some of you who are familiar with me, you'll remember I mentioned that there are 8 years worth of defenses in Donetsk, that these were basically put up over the last 8 years, all the defenses in the Donetsk region and to the west of Donetsk. These are heavily fortified areas. These things were not your normal fighting positions. They're not just a bunch of dirt and sandbags. These are hardened concrete positions, reinforced with electricity, sleeping quarters. They're many little fortresses. And they have been hardened and improved on a continuous basis. A lot of the money that NATO has been spending over there has helped to build these defenses. It also helped to put together a formidable army, the second largest army in Europe, that is being systematically dismantled by the Russian army. You know, the Russian army, those folks that we treat without any respect. That army. Apparently, while we were busy in the desert fighting farmers with AKs, the Russians decided that they were going to continually upgrade their systems for a conventional land war in Europe. And they've been doing so. And what you don't understand, or what you're not hearing about, is one of the most fortified towns on the line of contact was a place called Advitka. If you can go back, you can hear all about Advitka. Advitka was a very strong point. In fact, it was considered almost impossible to take. The Russians are now moving on that town. They got a break in the line a little bit to the south. And once they pushed into the rear, they're doing what the Russians have been doing for years. They use operational maneuver groups. They move into the enemy's rear, and they do the bloom or the flower, however you want to call it, which is basically they make their penetration and they split off in different directions. And this is to make the most of the gains, attack the other positions of the line from behind. So that is what's going on. Advitka is now being threatened. They're also simultaneously hitting a bunch of other cities. Bakhmut, for example. Bakhmut is, there's fighting on the outskirts of Bakhmut. There's movement to the north where nobody thought there would be any movement up around Kharkov. Now, whether these movements are part of a bigger offensive or they are just fixing operations to keep the Ukrainians in place. Only time will tell. And we're all waiting for that vaunted offensive that's supposed to be taking place this month in Kherson. Now, one of the reasons this Kherson attack is so important is a lot of the Western powers who've been backing Ukraine have put a lot of money into seeing this happen. They need results. They need to show that they are getting results for the billions of dollars that they're dumping into the corrupt country. So much so that the Zelensky regime has decided that it needs to lighten up the line in other places. So it's lightening up the line in Donetsk and pushing troops into the Kherson region for this great offensive that doesn't look like it's going to happen. In fact, what's interesting is there are 30 operational brigades with the Russian army that happen to be in the Kherson region. They've reinforced. I hear a lot of military experts, not the people out of the Pentagon that are paid shills, but real military experts, a lot of veterans who don't have their head up the brasses behind, are saying that this may possibly not even be a defense. These brigades may be there for a new offense. Now, what would be laying beyond? Well, there's Mykolaiv and there's Odessa. And once you take Odessa, it's a short little hop over to Transnistria. And basically you have blocked off Ukraine from the Black Sea. And because we have given Harpoon missiles to Ukraine that are based in Odessa, we've pretty much sealed the fate that the Russians are going to have to take Odessa. There's no way around it. They're not going to let those Harpoon batteries sit there unanswered as a possible threat against the Black Sea fleet. Odessa will be taken. There's no way around it. There's no foreseeable way around it. And the Russians would love to have a land bridge to Transnistria. But that's all in the future, folks, because what's going on right now is we're seeing the culmination of the battle in Donbass. And there are several startling developments. Number one, units are deserting. And when I say deserting, they're leaving the line without permission. They cannot stand up to the magnitude of the firepower that's coming down on them. Let me give you a little hint. Even back in the 80s, we understood that the Soviets, the precursor to the Russians, were the masters of artillery. They do artillery exemplary. Massed firepower. All you have to do is go back to look at the lessons from World War II and how the Soviets would mass firepower, how they overwhelmed the Germans in World War II with massed firepower. That's nothing new, folks, and they're going to continue to do so. They're going to continue to use those tactics. When you've got units leaving the line without permission, it becomes infectious. Folks panic. They don't want to be left there. Hey, look, this guy over here is pulling out. I don't want to be there. I want to get myself out of harm's way. And so, not only is it infectious, and it has a terrible blow on morale, but there are a couple of interesting things that have happened. At least one of the units that was withdrawing, it came under friendly fire. In other words, the Ukrainian army shelled these guys as they were pulling out. Now, there are two schools of thought. One, that they were accidentally shelled because they thought they were advancing Russian troops that were advancing across the field, so they shelled them, which is a mistake. Fog of war, I get it. The other, which is what I'm leaning towards, is these guys were shelled purposely to try to force them back into position. Now, you may say, well, that's kind of rash, isn't it, Dave? Well, yeah, it is. But it's not beyond the scope of warfare in that region. In World War II, there were what they called blocking detachments. Blocking detachments were put forward to make sure that units didn't fall back, that they stayed on the line, that they didn't retreat without permission. And these guys would shoot their own forces who tried to retreat. And this was big in the Soviet Army. And I'd like to remind you guys, not only is the Russian army a successor to the Soviet army, but so is the Ukrainian army. The Ukrainians were part of the Soviet Union. A lot of people act like they don't want to accept that or recognize that, but it happens to be the truth. It's one of the situations. It's the way it goes. So you've got friendly fire, you've got demoralization, you've got guys that are running out. One of the Ukrainians described their experience as hell, saying that they received in a short period of time over 6,500 artillery shells on a small city. That's a lot of artillery shells in less than a day. And they said that because the firepower that was coming down on them was so overwhelming, they couldn't even mount a retaliation. They couldn't shoot back. It just wasn't in the cards. They couldn't do it. And if we had all that, then there's another story which keeps popping up from about a week ago. For those of you who've been following the war since the beginning, there was a battle in a port city called Mariupol. And Mariupol was a holdout for some of the nationalists of Azov, and also the 36th Naval Infantry Battalion were holding out in the Azovstal steelworks. And those guys eventually surrendered, and they surrendered, and then Zelensky goes, oh, I gave them permission after the fact. They were already surrendering. They're not real keen on Zelensky. The prison that they were being held at in Donetsk got shelled by American HIMARS. Yes, our high mobility rocket launch system that we've given them, that the Russians have destroyed 6 units of so far. And why would they have bothered to strike their own people? Well, first of all, they tried to say the Russians did it. The Russians did it. The real reason's coming out. A lot of the guys, the prisoners, were starting to give interviews, and they were saying how they were ordered to do various war crimes and atrocities. They were coming out and giving interviews. And the Ukrainian regime couldn't handle that. So they lobbed a few shells in there to just kind of remind them that you may be on that side of the line, but we can still reach you. Now, I don't know if there are going to be any more interviews, but those guys were talking, and I'll tell you, the nationalist battalions, there's no love lost between them and Zelensky at the moment. Zelensky used them. They used Zelensky. It's a parasitic relationship in both directions. Or, they each used each other. And I'm not feeling sorry for the guys that got shelled. They're not good guys. And I don't feel sorry for the government who's doing that, because they're not good guys. In fact, I've said it before, there aren't a whole lot of good guys in this other than the DPR and LNR. Those folks are fighting for their own freedom. They're fighting for their own self-determination. So, we are watching all this happen. The lines are starting to crack. One of the most amazing things to me is how the Western powers, my own government included, say, oh, the Russians are losing because they're moving so slow. No, actually, they're being really sparing with their lives. They're softening up the positions, and they're moving forward and overwhelming them. They're taking them. It takes time. Just like it took time in the hedgerows of France during the Normandy campaign. It takes time. You want to run in headlong, expect a meat grinder. If you want to try to minimize casualties, you take your time and you work the positions over. And that's another thing. The Russians have been numerically, as far as the number of troops they've used, they've been numerically inferior to the Ukrainians since they came in, manpower-wise. Now, equipment, no, because the Russian have a superior air force that is dominating the air. It is also, they have a superior artillery arm that is dominating the indirect fire world. And the worst thing is, the Russians are going in on the cheap, and they are systematically destroying the enemy. They are dismantling that army. And then we get into the propaganda war. Well, the Russians are losing, this is bad, that's bad. Now the Russians are pushing back. The Russians are now saying that in one of these biolabs that they now have under their control, that they found documents that the United States government is responsible for the spreading of COVID and monkeypox. Now, some of you guys might say, well, that's an out-and-out lie. I don't know. I just know that's what the Russians are reporting. I can tell you a lot of the things that we're hearing on our news are out-and-out lies. And they are beyond repair. I mean, it's almost like Baghdad Bob is reincarnated and working for CNN or Fox or any of these networks. The facts on the ground don't seem to stand up for the nonsense we're being told. Well, folks, I'm going to get off here because the last time I made a 20-minute video, it took over 8 hours for the damn thing to upload. So we're going to see if I can't get this one up sometime before midnight tonight. Anyhow, folks, y'all take care and be careful.